This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the thing, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 99. And tonight, I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hey.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hello.
So tonight we have the full crew once again, and we may or may not be starting like an hour later than normal because of a run-in I had with the hospital, but whatever. Also, things may be a little wobbly, so I apologize ahead of time. So, last week we talked a little bit about the issues that Wildstar was having, namely with a bunch of layoffs, and as a result, it's caused this weird kind of resurgence in the community where people have logged in. I've logged in. Grace, I think you said you've logged in.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually, it sort of inspired me to get back in and actually raid a little bit again. I haven't done it in a couple months, so it was totally worth it.
So one of the things that's happened in this week that gives me more hope for the game than anything else is there's a thread on the forums started by Pappy talking about the potential of dropping the faction wall. And for years I've said that, you know, I really hate faction walls in video games. I think they're horrible. So the ability to play Dominion and Exile players together seems like that's kind of cool. Like, that would be really fun. I posted a lengthy reply to that thread, and there's tons of other people, and there's folks on both sides of the argument, and I thought it might be interesting to talk about faction walls in general, and especially with Wildstar in particular.
Yeah, I just have to say that I agree that of all the potential things that could have happened this week, the fact that they are actively seeking feedback on a change like this does restore a little bit of faith that the game has a future. I mean, I don't know exactly what the future is going to hold, but they're obviously still working, still planning, and still, potentially making changes like this to try to entice more people and to keep people around, and that they're still engaging with the players on this level. It makes me feel a lot better than I did before.
Well, and one of the problems that Wildstar has struggled with is they have among the most lopsided populations I've ever seen in any video game. I want to say it's like something 60% Exile, 40% Dominion, maybe closer to 70%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's even close to 60-40.
60-40 is more balanced than I think it actually is.
What was WoW in vanilla? Because that was a pretty bad population imbalance.
It was about 60-40.
Yeah, it was slightly worse than 60-40. I'm pretty sure Wildstar was worse than vanilla WoW.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can go to the capital city of the Dominion side and it is almost empty. Whereas you go to Fade Exile side and you can barely move because your frame rate is chugging so much because of the people.
I don't remember when this was, but I do remember hearing at one point somebody saying that it was like that Wildstar, the Dominion was in the teens with Wildstar at one point. That's still the case, or if it's even that any.
I don't think it's still the case, but I believe that at least on some servers that it may have been that way for a while.
That's rough.
It was definitely incredibly unbalanced, and I felt, so we'll start talking about this, I guess, but I felt terrible that I had a few friends who I would love to play with, and they played Dominion, and there was just no way that I was going to even bother. Like, I have one character that's high enough level so that I could go and look at the housing, because I love the housing, and I wanted to be able to see the Dominion side stuff. But that was it. I was level 14.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem.
Well, and I had the problem where amongst the handful of us that were playing back then, I really wanted to play Exile, but like everyone else was super interested in Dominion. And I finally fell in love with my Chua, and that's actually a problem right now. Is like I wish I could play my Chua, but Exile side, because it's just like the quests and the layout of the zones and stuff on the Exile side better. But adorable Chua.
I kind of fell out of love with the Chua.
Well, like I fell in love with the model of the Chua. I just don't like the Chua as a race. They're horrible, horrible creatures.
I like
They
them
do
better than
bad.
all the Exile races.
It's fair. I don't like most of the races.
I love the Mordash, and no one will make me change my mind.
That's it. So population walls are like. I'm trying to think what I think is the best use of those.
Faction walls?
Yeah, like if you
I don't think there is
really
one.
want to try and segment your community and like keep it to a specific size, faction walls might be a way to do that.
EverQuest did it way better.
Yes.
Like the thing that EverQuest did was based on selections you made during character creation, and then and to some extent some choices of your own. It would put you in a starting zone, and it went really well. Because each starting zone favored different things, and so different people wanted to go to different starting zones, and it was an adventure getting from one starting zone to another. But like, it wasn't like, oh, I picked this, therefore this is where I start.
Yeah.
Well, and
But it's still possible to start off like I don't know all races in EverQuest. It's possible to start pick a race and your friend picked a race that hated your race. So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
But even
Like,
that,
eventually you can play together, but it would take a long time.
well, and basically there was a way to repair almost every faction in the game. And for example, a good friend of mine played an Ixar. Ixars are the lizard guys. Lizard guys start out hated by everyone other than Ixar. Well, there was a quest in the halfling starting zone that I can't think of the name, Rivervale. And the quest involved a neutral NPC out on the outskirts. And by hunting Bixies and turning in parts, I believe, you could slowly work your faction up. And he got it to the point where he was, friendly with all of these halflings. And he was like this lizard guy that was friends with the halflings. Now you could go a zone over, and people still hated him there, but in this one zone, he had become like, the hero of the zone for helping the people out. And I did the same thing with my my ranger in the evil erudite city of Payneal. I had slowly worked my faction up to where I could go in and hang out, and I was the only half-elf down there. And it was cool because, faction was a personal choice. Sure, you were given a template, but you could change it.
yeah, you know what's a great thing to put on a cash shop? That, peace offering halfling.
Yup.
You want to roll whatever you like and play it with your friends? Sure, pay a little bit of money to do exactly the custom thing that you want. That's a perfect cash shop opportunity that is somewhere in between cosmetic and not, but is still compelling.
Well, and I think it's the sort of thing that nobody gripes about, so long as there is a way to do it in the game otherwise. This is the perfect example of, cash to buy playtime, where you would normally have to devote all of this playtime to factioning up, or you could just, buy some tokens off the shop to improve your faction.
Just spend money to customize your experience in exactly the way that you want.
See, I, on the other hand, feel like faction walls, like the kind of faction walls we're talking about here, are stupid and should not exist at all.
I
kind of
generally
agree.
agree.
Systems like F-14 or even the Secret World where they
That's
have
exactly what I
factions.
was going to bring up. Because the reason faction walls exist is for PvP. Every single game that has faction walls, it's because that side hates this side, and there's going to be PvP between the sides, and so they hate each other, blah, blah, blah. And I mean,
And it feels
honestly,
way more artificial than opt-in factions.
Yeah, whereas Final
Yeah.
Fantasy XIV, you can pick a faction and PvP with your faction, and it doesn't affect your PvP gameplay at all. If you're going to have PvP in the game, put it over there so it doesn't affect my PvE game at all.
And I'm glad that you brought up Secret World, because I like the way that their factions work also. I mean, Final Fantasy 14 is a bit almost extreme in that, other than cosmetic stuff, if you choose whatever faction, it really has almost zero bearing on anything unless you happen to PvP. And the secret world, it's got a little bit more of an influence on the game and some of the PvE side of things, but it still doesn't affect how you are able to play with your friends, and that's what I want. Like, so I'm really hoping for out of Wildstar, like whether I have to pay for it or whether they just make a change. I want to be able to play with my friends, to communicate with my friends without an add-on, and be able to join a guild with them, to be able to visit the housing on either side of the faction wall and not worry about the faction.
I feel like it goes back to that thing in multiplayer games where any design that makes it harder for you to play with your friends is not good.
Yep.
No matter how well you think you can justify it, if it is making it harder to play with friends, it's bad. It's why I like rage about levels, but it's the same kind of thing here. Like faction wall it's another like artificial feeling thing that, like, sure, you can use it as progression or identity, but it just is a barrier to you playing with your friends.
And I understand, like, I'm really curious to see how this ends up playing out in Wildstar, because one of the things that they had to do just this week is, I think, is to merge all of the servers together, and so now all of the PvP and PvE folks are all on one ostensibly PvE server, and so I think it does sort of slightly complicate the faction thing for those folks who enjoy PvP and roll on the PvP server for a reason, and now have already been merged down onto a PvE server, and now they're talking about potentially taking away the faction wall completely. And so, I'm just kind of curious what happens and whether those people give up or whether they give incentives, figure out a way to keep PvE and PvP sort of merged and happy together. I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I really thought was interesting and really kind of liked was that when they announced this merger, before they even merged them, they actually encouraged people to flag PvP out in the open world by giving an increase to, I think, currency rewards, XP, and prestige, which is the PvP currency, for killing PvE mobs out in the world when you're flagged. And it was, I think, the first time in forever that I actually willingly flagged myself for PvP and went out and quested, just because they actually made it worth my while. And this week was the first time that I was out questing and flagged, and I actually got in the face several times, and then I turned it off. But I turned it back on again later. So, it was like, I can do with this, and, in the times when people aren't ganging up on me, it's rewarding. And if there was a one-on-one situation, I may have even bothered to fight back.
My frustration has always been that, like, all of these issues come around when in truth the world PvP people are such a small niche inside of an already smaller niche when it comes to sandbox games. Not sandbox, theme park games. Like, there's a lot of people that dabble in PvP, but there's not that many people that their focus really is on PvP, and that's been shown in the number of very PvP-centric games that come onto the market that don't actually really survive, and they don't find a niche.
Well, there's a reason that the PvP server had to be merged down into the PvE one, I mean, it was pretty dead. And I think that, There are times when world PvP can be somewhat entertaining, but for the most part, it's sort of like what happened to me, which is I was minding my own business, and the other guys from the opposite faction ganged up on me and murdered me and camped me until I gave up and went away. So, I don't know, I guess that's fun for somebody, but it wasn't super exciting for me.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned this before, but my association with World PvP is being ganked on a level 3 on a PvP server in Moonblade. It's, yeah.
There's not a lot to recommend the experience, and like,
Nope.
It's one of those things where I know exactly the kind of experience they're trying to recreate. World PvP doesn't do it.
It's an experience that I don't know that has ever truly existed. I mean, we've known that World PvP doesn't really work, at least since Ultima Online.
It's more trying to imitate the Dark Age of Camelot.
I was going to say, every game is DAOC. It's
Yeah.
been aiming for that.
Well, and even Dark Age of Camelot didn't have world PvP.
No, it just...
And let me qualify that statement, is like, it had an entire realm that you could fight with other players, but the bulk of your questing and leveling and dungeoning all happened with only your faction. Like, there was no PvP on a day-to-day basis. Like, you went to the frontiers to PvP, or you went to special battleground-like areas.
What Dark Age got right is they created a separate place that was the PvP place that you went to if you wanted to participate in PvP. That had a bunch of other stuff for you to do while you were there, but was you knew what you were getting into if you went into the frontier. And like, it's one of the reasons why like we were talking about the Division last week, I really like its Dark Zone as a PvP space, because you know what you're getting into. You're incentivized to go in there, and there's good reasons to go in there if you don't want to fight other players, but it's just like Dark Age Frontiers. You know what you're getting into. It's not like, oh no, it's always dangerous, because the number of people who actually like that are vanishingly small.
Well, and one of the things that I find hilarious is this is, relating to the Dark Zone. People are screaming bloody murder that there is massive risk for going rogue and attacking other players. And they want to go gank people. They want to go gank people with impunity, and they're complaining that it's too hard on them if they die.
Again, there is nothing new under the sun. Red players in Ultima Online.
Yep.
Or the same way.
I feel like what they want from PvP is sort of the danger experience and the lack of trust in your own survival, which is something that like everyone is reaching for since EverQuest.
It's one of those people have been reaching for since EverQuest without realizing what EverQuest did right. Why it worked for EverQuest.
Well, and they obviously don't understand what Dark Age of Camelot did right either, because like no one is actually replicating Dark Age of Camelot other than Elder Scrolls Online, and I think Elder Scrolls Online is doing a good job with it.
Guild Wars 2 tried.
Yeah, but Guild Wars 2 is a weird implementation of it. But yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, world versus world versus world. The problem is the whole setup of Dark Age of Camelot is what led to it being the way it was. And ESO is the only game that I can think of that really has that setup where you have 3 distinct areas that ultimately funnel you into this upper area zone where there's lots of stuff to do other than just PvP. The irony of the Dark Age of Camelot comparison, though, is I never played on regular servers. I played on Gaheris, which was the cooperative server, because it allowed my friends and I access to every race in the game and 3 times the zones and 3 times the number of dungeons. So I played on the Care Bear server in Dark Age of Camelot and had a wonderful time because it had no faction walls.
It's amazing once you realize what else you could be doing.
Yep.
Well, and for most players, like, DOC wasn't a dungeoning game, because really, if you're looking at your own faction, you had maybe, 5 total in the world? Whereas on Gaheris, we had 15. We could be in dungeons every night and not get bored of them. But mostly, I just support any game that's willing to get rid of their faction walls, because it just seems like an artificial construct that we've outgrown at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
There's a lot of honestly, there's a lot of MMO things that like we hang on to because we feel like that's the way they are, but not really. Do things differently.
Well, I feel like, I mean, we're seeing, if you think about the most successful MMOs coming out right now, it's stuff like Destiny and Division. And so they're shaking up that model a lot.
I really think that, like, if you took a Destiny type game but set it in a fantasy setting and gave it swords and magic and all of that, that you would have a really popular game amongst the serious PvP crowd.
So I think we've sort of brushed this before, but melee combat is harder than gunplay, turns out.
Yeah.
To make melee combat feel good.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. Like, melee combat requires you to have a very interesting movement system. Which is
not even just that.
Not
it's
even
animations that. More.
What?
It's animations. You need animations. That is the thing that makes it next to impossible. Is when you're using guns, you can just have a firing the gun animation and you hit reaction animation, and that's all the syncing you need to do. But when you start dealing with melee, like, you have to start talking about different weapon types and hit locations, and your whole animation gets way more complicated.
Well, and the classic struggle with
animation syncing for finishers.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
The problem is always that you either have a really fluid looking animation or you have really fluid gameplay around it, because usually the animation locks screw up the gameplay.
Yeah, it messes up your timing. Unless you do something like Street Fighter, like, unless you really go deep into the like fighting game style animation sets. But like, that's a deep hole that you may not want to get involved with.
Dungeon Fighter exists. It's not popular in this country at all, but it does exist.
But I think somebody's going to figure it out eventually. Like, someone will bridge the gap, and I think it's more likely that it would be a hybrid MMO than a traditional MMO. Because they're going to have to focus so intently on that problem right there that they're going to need to ignore some of the other systems that MMOs traditionally have. But anyway, on the whole faction wall thing, there is a thread on the Wildstar forums, and I highly suggest you make your voice heard if you have specific opinions on it. I was passionate enough about this that I thought I couldn't post on the forums because I wasn't subscribed, and I went out and subscribed to the game just to post on the forums. It turns out I just hadn't logged in a while.
I guess that's still dedication, though.
Yep. Anyway, so another thing that's been going on this week is it sounds like you guys have all been going mad with Stardew Valley?
Yeah.
I am farming, mining, fishing crazy.
Can
I just say, I never thought I would meet a game where I like fishing. But fishing in this game is a lot of fun.
It's actually hard.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
And sometimes you beat the fish, and sometimes the fish beats you.
So I've been carefully avoiding this game. What is it about it that is so intoxicating?
Do you want to do all of the things? Because you can do all of the things.
Whenever you want. Do as many things, or as few as you want to. Also, the little people are adorable, and it's actually entertaining. Like, I don't know, I played a lot of this game before I really got far in terms of making friends with the townsfolk, and so now I'm just starting to see some of their little stories and things come out, and they're all just really cute and, I don't know, very entertaining.
Oh man, so there's somebody who I was trying to flirt with, and I was like, I do not know what type of gift she would like. And like, she just made an offhanded comment about how she was really excited to be inventing some new project. And I was like, huh, you like inventing? I wonder if you would like rare ores. And so I gave her a rare ore, and she's like, yeah, this is a perfect gift for me. Like, the story behaved exactly like I hoped it would. And that was a really great feeling.
Yeah. It is Harvest Moon meets Zelda meets Minecraft. It is super charming, and it doesn't rush you. Like, everything is timed. Every single day passes pretty much regardless of what you do. You can pause it, but like, it takes you time to go from A to point B, and that's time that you're doing anything else. But at the same time, like, okay, that's what I did today. I don't feel rushed. I don't feel like I'm racing to get stuff done or like trying to beat some clock. I'm just doing stuff.
Yeah, the only time I feel like I'm rushed is when I'm trying to run back from the mines before bedtime and like not fall asleep on the road somewhere.
Yeah, I figured I can typically make it if I leave by midnight. But so this game has so many different things, and like it sort of encourages you to do everything, and that's really cool. Like, do you like to get the best way to get minerals? Go into the mine, fight some monsters. The best, like, you can make a lot of money making crops. You can make a lot of money just foraging around, chopping down trees. Like, all of these activities are valuable, and all of them draw from one resource bar. So you're always thinking, well, how can I stretch my energy today? How can I become a little bit more efficient today?
What do you feel like doing today? I feel like doing yesterday. Oh, hey, this takes a certain amount of time. There's not really any way for me to interact with it, so I'll do this other thing for a while, because why not?
Oh yeah, for me, definitely like, well, I kind of want to, like, I want to get into the mines more, but I'm spending a lot of energy on farming right now. Can I make more efficient farming? Have more energy to go into the mines? And that's a fun puzzle for me to solve.
And it sort of provides you with various interludes also. I mean, you have rainy days where you don't have to deal with your crops, and so you have more time to go and run to the mines and spend all day there, you know, or the better you get at things, the more you can build stuff that automates work for you.
Yeah, all of the villagers, you want to talk with them. You want to talk with at least the ones that you like every day. Because if you don't talk with somebody, they like you slightly less. And so that's a certain amount of times it's like, who do I talk to today? Who's interesting? And,
I did not realize that. That does not make me.
But it's
Not
but
very
it's
much
such a-
less.
it's a very, very slight amount. But like talking with people every day they like you more. Like there's a bunch of people who I have surprising amount of hearts with because I just happen to run into them every day and chat with them.
It's also a game where it feels like I'm learning behaviors. This is a deep game, very deep game with a lot of stuff to learn. And wow, certain fish are just jerks. I haven't figured out what type of fish this is that I'm trying to fish, but in the ocean, it just bounces all over the place. I'm like, what on earth am I trying to reel in here?
Yeah. Well, in similar vein, all of the villagers have schedules, and you can get really good at saying hi to everybody you want to if you know what they're doing every day, and what they're doing every day makes sense.
It's almost kind of sounding a little bit like Animal Crossing at times.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, I've never played Harvest Moon, so Animal Crossing is the closest thing for me that this feels like. But with a lot of other stuff mixed in as well.
So I guess the question is, it seems like there's a lot of stuff here to do. Are there any good sources of information on it? Any wikis, things like that?
There
Yeah.
is a wiki.
The wiki. Some wikis are better about spoiling you versus not, but that's part of the joy of the game is that much like Minecraft, you don't really need to jump into a wiki to figure out if you're doing it right because there's two stuff, and you'll figure out other stuff you do. Like Kodra mentioned that his day is focused on maximizing his energy bar. I actually almost never have energy problems. Mine is getting from place to place efficiently. Like, what's the best way to get to 3% in a given day?
Yeah, I mean, my day is usually, it's more about what do I want to do with this day? Like, I have the resources and I have the means to tackle any of the different things I want to do, but you pretty much need to pick one or two things each day to focus on, or you will run out of time and energy.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is something you just have to do every day, like taking care of your crops. Like, if you don't take care of your crops, they're gonna die.
Although you don't necessarily have to grow any crops. You could
It's
just
true.
ignore
You
that.
don't have to be a farmer, but I like farming.
Yeah.
Also, I need to learn how to take care of chickens now.
Pet them.
Pet them? Do I need to feed them?
Yes.
You can let them eat grass, or they can eat hay. They're strange chickens.
The other thing
Man,
I
my
would like
chickens
to mention.
chastise me on a constant basis.
Yes,
The
don't
other-
wake them when they're sleeping. They don't like it.
Yeah.
The other thing that's kind of worth mentioning is just how much story there is packed in the game. Like, I got a random quest from a person to go find an item for him, and that led me to finding out that he's probably having an affair and is trying to keep that on the down low.
I don't think it's don't you have to be married for it to be an affair?
Yeah, I don't think either of them are married.
Oh,
Yeah.
aren't they?
No,
No.
they're just having a tryst that they don't want anybody else to know about.
Interesting.
Yes.
And they're not very good at hiding it.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, you'll see them like drinking together at the pub and stuff constantly.
That's hilarious.
And the fact that that's a thing that happens is so great. Like, that's one of the things that makes the game so great. Like, you have this little hint of story, and then when you wander around town and look around, it plays out, in a way that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, what happened to me one day is I went to get my house upgraded on a particular day. And I knew that the carpenter was open that day. But when I went in, she was leaving the building. I was like, well, the thing I was going to do today was get my house upgraded. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just follow her around until she comes to her shop, and because I'm not doing anything else today, I'll follow her around until she's, done. And I saw this, day in the life of the carpenter, where apparently this was the day she went and got her, doctor's checkup. And she and the doctor had a full dialogue back and forth. I was like, oh, well, this is a whole thing that really happened. Also, I feel weird following this person around all day.
But it's interesting. Like, yeah, I think almost everybody in town has a day where they go for a checkup or go
Yeah.
see the doctor, and there's usually there's a day when there's aerobics class, and a couple of the women in town go and hang out in the back of the store and have aerobics class.
Yeah, there's at least one hypochondriac who's in the doctor once a week.
And when during the week there's a few particular people who are always in the pub, and on the weekends almost everybody goes and hangs out there for a little while in the evening.
You can see the cool loner kids sneak out for a cigarette next to the river.
Yeah, the first time I saw that, I just absolutely cracked up.
Really funny.
And the goth chick apparently likes to go play the flute by the lake in the rain. Because why not?
Yeah, well, because she knows nobody else will come out there, and she doesn't want to know anybody knows she plays the flute.
So what you're saying is this is a very meta game.
It's really help and take part in this lovely pastoral life.
I wouldn't say it's really meta at all. It's really just it's very engrossing, and it feels complete. This is a complete town with complete people who have complete little lives.
Yeah, that's what I really like about it, is the attention to detail is super thorough. I can catch different fish in a lake versus a river versus the ocean at different times in different seasons.
Boy, does this game also have a message. Mostly, it really doesn't
It's a really anti-gentrification message that it's got.
It's got some anti-gentrification messages going on. It's Jojo Martis in office.
I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to talk about this too much, but there is an incredibly charming little piece of story that will happen once you complete all of your packages.
Sure.
God, I'm so far away from doing that.
Or you can go to pack and sell the building to Jojamar and buy stuff with money.
That
If you're a
sounds
terrible
like
person.
something a monster would do.
Yeah. Has anyone done that?
No, I can't bring myself to
No.
do that.
I'm curious. I might start another game at some point just to try that, to see what happened, because especially now that I know what happens with the community center, I'm really curious to see what happens if you just pay them money and tear it all down. But and it's great. Like you spend all this time fixing up the community center, and once it's fixed up, a couple of days out of the week, people go and use it. It's not just like, oh, I just like spent a bunch of time fishing a lot of stupid fish forever to fill out these packages. Like, no, the townsfolk actually go and use the thing you did.
I also like, in a similar vein, relationships with villagers aren't just plug candy in until you get all the hearts and then ignore them forever. Like, you've got to like upkeep your relationships, kind of like actual life. And if you don't, people will slowly forget about you.
I don't know, I've sunk way, way, way too many hours into this game, and I'm now in the spring, I think, of my 3rd year, and I am nowhere near done. I mean, it depends what you want to call done, but, like, I still have, like, items that I have not found. I still have tons of people that I have not made friends with. Like, there's tons of stuff I still need to craft, and there's fish I haven't caught, and so, and there's not a hurry to do it. I mean, now I'm at the point where I have lots of stuff automated, so it's a lot easier for me to go into town and spend most of my days chasing people down and throwing presents at them.
Yeah, this is like my first foray in a very long time into this type of a game. So I don't know if other types of games of this type are this in-depth or not, but it's really cool just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
So I don't know if there's any game that's like this. Like, I played some Harvest Moon back in the day, and it's super detailed on the little interactions with people, but there's not all of these things that you can do in that game. And the same is true with, like, Animal Crossing. Like, there's a lot of little intricate interactions, but it's not as broad as this.
Yeah, it's kind of, none of the things that Stardew Valley is new, are necessarily new, but it's putting them all together. Like, it has a Minecraft style crafting system, and that's like, okay, that's a not small thing to include.
There's a game series called Rune Factory, which is basically where Harvest Moon has been the last generation.
Yeah, Rune Factory is probably the closest.
A lot of similar things.
Yeah, it's closest it gets.
Is there bug catching in this game?
As far as I know.
I don't want to catch all of these adorable butterflies.
I want to keep, like, the jellyfish from the Jellyfish Festival in a tank somewhere.
Huge. I'm deeply concerned about those jellyfish. They're enormous. I hope none of them never swimming in that ocean.
Sounds like we're winding things down on Stardew Valley. Anyone else have anything else they want to talk about tonight before we wrap things up?
My hats from the mouse.
What?
The mouse itself hats.
It's true. Are those hats worth it?
Yeah.
I don't know. They're, like, a hat that you buy from the mouse. Like, what more do you need?
I guess I don't.
That's exactly, like, their hats. And there's some great hats. And they're adorable, and the mouse is great.
The mouse is also pretty great. I unlocked a bajillion bows, which is not really working for me, but...
Okay, so I'm hearing is no, we really don't have anything else to talk about tonight.
We don't have anything else to talk about.
Okay, then we'll wrap things up. As always, you can find our stuff on AggroChat.com, and all of our social media linky things are there. Next week, we will have our 100th episode. And is that also the Game Club game episode?
It sure is. We're going to talk about Undertale.
Yep.
Yay.
A game that I need to beat this week. Anyway.
Remember, always think of blue stop sign.
Blue stop sign. I've not encountered blue stop sign yet.
Oh, you must have.
I don't think so, at least.
Maybe not.
Pretty early.
It's pretty early.
Anyway. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. It is a little robot-y, but hopefully we'll get that sorted out by next week. We'll see you next week, and hopefully you have a great night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See you.
Good night.
See you.
Good night.
See you.
Good night.
See you.
Good night.